About a tight 90 on the deuce. Let's go. Welcome to SportsCenter from our nation's capital. The Phoenix Suns, in pursuit of their first ever NBA championship, are 3 wins away. I'm Scott Van Pelt with you until 1 a.m. Eastern Time. Comprehensive post-game coverage. You know what to expect. Tim Legler will be here. He'll show you what the Suns did specifically to attack the Bucks defense. Stephen A. Smith here as well. We will hear from someone on the Suns, either Ayton or Bridges, we believe, or perhaps Chris Paul. And we'll get the Bucks' perspective on what went wrong. To the highlights. Words of being a terrible team, they got Ayton and Bridges in that same 18 draft. They're putting their fingerprints on it. As is Booker, as is Chris Paul. And you see the most points by a starting backcourt making a finals debut. So it's a very specific sort of criteria here. And Paul and Booker go for 59 in this one. And we welcome in Tim Legler. And Tim, a little bit later, you're going to show us some of the specifics of how Paul was able to hunt the matchups he wanted, but just the overarching sort of themes that stand out, bullet points from this victory from the Suns. What were they?
First, for me, there was 2 completely different levels of sharpness in this game. I'm sorry. Phoenix was just so much more prepared, so much more confident, so much more sure of what they were doing, what they were trying to accomplish. They basically had Chris Paul and DeAndre Ayton be the absolute best versions of themselves, and Devin Booker does what he does. He got to his number. He didn't shoot the ball great, but to have your 3 best players play that well, and you look at Milwaukee, Giannis clearly wasn't himself. Chris Middleton was pretty good overall most of the night, and Drew Holiday wasn't very good offensively. He lost his aggressiveness once again. So for me, no comparison in the 2 teams tonight. That did not feel like, at one point it was 9 with 6 minutes to go. That felt like a 25-point game to me. Phoenix was that much sharper than the Milwaukee Bucks tonight. And the other thing that you can tell is the deflections, the active hands, the difficulty Milwaukee had just completing simple passes in their half-court offense shows you how prepared Phoenix was for what they were trying to do to them, what they were running, where their next body movement was going to be. I just thought Phoenix was all over this. And that's coaching, it's confidence, and it's an incredible amount of trust amongst their teammates and chemistry. They were ready. They did not look like the stage was too big for them at all. And that's a great sign for Phoenix going forward in this series.
And we can tell you that Chris Paul will be joining us here on the show a little bit later. And Tim, let's widen this out a little bit to welcome Stephen A. Smith into the conversation. And Stephen A., I remember saying a while back on this show that for a team like Phoenix, who as a group had not competed in the playoffs yet, to win 16 games, man, that seemed like quite a mountain, right? I mean, that's typically there's a growth process here. They've got 13 wins, and Chris Paul's role in this 13th win, as you were there in the building, how would you best describe what he provided this Suns group tonight?
Well, it was a sensational performance. You've got a veteran leader that's had 16 years in the league, and even with devoid of a championship, is still recognized as one of the greatest point guards to have ever played this game. But when you couple that with the inabilities of the Milwaukee Bucks, you look at CP3 and you say, well, duh, what did you expect from him? When you're going to put Bobby Portis on them, when you got Brook Lopez on them, when you got P.J. Tucker on them. Wilbon and I were just talking about that a few minutes ago. What the hell do you expect is going to happen? It is mind-boggling to me how I don't want to be insulting, but absolutely clueless the Milwaukee Bucks appeared last night in being prepared for this game. You know that CP3 and Devin Booker, you know what they're going to give to you, particularly when they're hitting their perimeter shots. But a guy like CP3 is literally picking defenders. Who am I going to pick on next? Right. And absolutely, positively no adjustment was made whatsoever, and that's why he looked so spectacular.
So you didn't want to be insulting, but they were clueless.
Yeah, I'm trying to be. Look, Scott, man, I'm trying to be nice, but at the same time, give you and our audience what it is. Tim Legler was right there. He's far nicer than me, I guess. But the bottom line is, he knows exactly what I'm saying. If you look at the adjustments and then look at the ball movement, look at how Monty Williams has these guys moving without the ball. But Milwaukee was standing around and just trying to give the ball to Middleton.
I understand, and I'm trying to be nice to you, but Chris Paul's standing by, and so I'm going to have to say thank you for now, and we will welcome Chris Paul to the show. Chris, thank you. It's Scott Van Pelt. Welcome back to the program. A tremendous performance tonight.
What's happening?
You've been through so much in this game. There's nothing that's new to you, and yet this was, right? This is the first finals game, and I wonder what, if anything, about it felt different than anything you have experienced to date in your illustrious career.
Another game, obviously. The stakes a little higher. The intensity was there, but we're prepared. Our coaches prepared us. All of our guys on our team, we didn't put in the work, so now it's time to get to it.
And you did get to it, and just your ability to find the matchup you wanted and exploit it, was that what you came into this game sort of eyeballing? This is what we want to try to do.
Well, you take what they give you. When they played big, they switched early, then they sort of went into a drop. Then they went small. We saw them switching everything against the Hawks. So, we just seen every coverage you could see all season long, and our team just has so much depth. So if you try to take one thing away, we'll just find the next guy.
In Booker, Ayton, Bridges, and I'm talking just about the young guys for the moment, just because this is their first run through the postseason, Chris. You've been through it so often. I don't know if proud's the right word, but how do you best describe what you're getting from these young guys and how you feel about what you're getting?
I kind of talk crazy to them sometimes because they're going to think it's sweet. They first time getting in the playoffs and they done got all the way to the finals.
Right.
But I think it's just a credit to them, especially Book. He's the one who's been here the longest, been through some tough seasons here in Arizona and Phoenix. So it's nice, man. It's a great group to be around, and we just want to keep having fun.
And I keep going back to you knowing what it is, because you do. And there are still 3 to get, and no one's throwing a parade after tonight. But how are you best able to stay present, Chris, in these moments, recognizing what the stakes are with each victory, how much closer the ultimate prize becomes?
With me, it may be the experience, the heartbreak, the tough losses, and understanding that it's not over till it's over. It's just one game. We here at home, we're supposed to win at home. Game 2 is the biggest game of the season right now. So with me, it's just about staying the course and making sure my guys stay locked in.
Well, Chris, I appreciate you stopping by after the victory. 3 more to get. Hopefully we can talk to you again throughout the process. I appreciate you being here.
Always, Scott. Appreciate you. Go Deeks.
There you go. Chris Paul, after a tremendous performance. And Stephen A., I'll welcome you back in. You heard what he had to say about the performances of these young guys. I'll get to you just in 1 second, Stephen A. You see a 30-point game in the NBA Finals at 36 or older all time. Kareem's on that list. He was ageless. Tim Duncan, you could say the same about him. And now Chris Paul, in his first NBA Finals game, joins that list. I wanted to get back to you, Stephen A., just to get your thoughts about what you heard, specifically about the youngsters, because this is their first playoff run, whether it's Booker or Ayton or Bridges. What are you seeing from those guys in complementing what Paul is providing?
Well, first of all, I'm seeing skill. Devin Booker is a star. This brother is special, and tonight was the latest example of how special he can be. Let's give major props to DeAndre Ayton. He had about 22 points, 19 rebounds, and was a constant presence and force throughout this evening. Mikal Bridges came off and hit a couple of threes. Obviously, Cameron Payne, he doesn't shoot much, but when he puts it up, it usually goes in. I'm sorry, not Cameron Payne, but Cameron Johnson. And then you look at Cameron Payne, what he comes in, what he's capable of doing off the bench. But it's a tribute and a credit to them that they're willing to listen to the tutors, to the just the leadership and the guidance from a veteran like CP3. In today's generation of players, so many times we look at youngsters and they've got the skill, and because they've got the skill, Scott, as you've reported on so many occasions, they've got the skills, they've got the bag, they know what they can bring to the table, and as a result, they feel they have arrived, that they don't necessarily need to listen to anybody. But right. CP3 comes here devoid of a championship, having had that escape him throughout his illustrious 16-year career, and despite the absence of a championship, they treat him like a champion because they respect the knowledge that he's trying to bless them with and the level of wisdom that he's imparted upon them. And so you got to give them credit where credit is due. To be young, to be established, to have the money, to have the skill set, to have all the adulation thrown in their direction, and to still be humbled enough to be held in check by a leader searching for his first championship, not one that came here as a champion. You got to give credit where credit is due. It shows that although they're young, they're incredibly mature, and they showed it tonight by being prepared for game 1 and pretty much throughout these playoffs. Every single series they've walked into, they've come here prepared and ready to play and put somebody else on their heels to start the playoffs. You got to give credit where credit is due in that regard.
I agree. Really well put. There's a lot to like about being out in the Valley, but there's one thing that's the challenge, and that's that wake-up call comes early. And I know first take will be, I'm looking at my watch, you got to get some early rest to get up early and bring the heat tomorrow. I appreciate you.
I'm good, but please don't say bring the heat. It's 106 degrees already here, okay?
Yeah, but it's a dry heat. You don't sweat?
I don't care. It's heat. Listen, I ain't going to complain. I like the heat better than the cold, so I ain't going to front. But it's roasting here. Roasting.
Turn the AC
you have
up,
a tan already, Scott.
I know your suite
I
know your suite is well looked after. Stephen A. Smith, I appreciate you, man.
Something like that. All right, my man.
All right, the Suns improved to a 4-0 in Game 1s this postseason, outscoring opponents by more than 11. Per game. 11 of the previous dozen teams to go 4-0 in Game 1s went on to win the title. DeAndre Ayton, who we've been giving a great deal of credit to because he continues to earn it throughout this postseason. Another 20-point game on 80% shooting, fourth such game this postseason, the most by any player in the shot clock era, which dates all the way back to the mid-50s, so it's been a while. As for the 36-year-old NBA Finals rookie, Chris Paul, 32-9, the first player with at least 38-9 in an NBA Finals debut since Michael Jordan in 1991. Coach Bud on what he saw from Paul and the Suns.
He's a good player. Their pick and roll game is tough to guard. So I think we just got to keep getting better. We'll look at the film. See how we can maybe take away some of the rhythm, to just take it where, or make it where he's not getting to his spots as easily. That'll be a big part of looking between Game 1 and Game 2.
Mark Jackson, Jeff Van Gundy, again, kind to join us as they have been throughout this playoffs. And Jeff, as you listen to Coach Bud talk about look at the film, I mean, they're going to see Chris Paul finding any matchup he wants. How would you approach Game 2 if you're him?
Well, I think the first thing you have to analyze is, do you like the matchups that you had on the floor defensively? And then, two, you started with the switching of pick and roll scheme and then went into a drop coverage. Again, they got what they wanted tonight against all of it. So, to me, how do you deploy Drew Holiday best? Is he best on Booker? Is he best on Paul? And how can we keep him on? You got to take away one of the two guys. You can't have all three of Ayton, Booker, and Paul all getting off. So I think these are big challenges because there are no easy answers to the pick and roll game of Phoenix.
Mark, as a distinguished point guard that you were, as you watch Paul, I mean, I don't want to be over the top here and be guilty of hyperbole, but how do you best frame the performance that he had in his first finals game at the age of 36?
Well, he was spectacular. Just did an incredible job of controlling the pace, winning the battle of 1-5 pick and roll on his own terms. Settled for nothing. Got to his spot time and time again, the mid-range jumper, and made him pay the price. He was absolutely spectacular, and the Milwaukee Bucks has got to make an adjustment of how they defended the 1-5 and 2-5 pick and roll.
And to both of you, we've gotten the thoughts earlier from Tim Legler and Stephen A. Smith, and just the perform, and from Chris Paul, most notably because he's the guy on the floor with these youngsters. They haven't been through these playoff battles, and I keep leaning into your experience with the process of learning it. These guys, this is their first trip around the block. I just wonder how impressed you are with what these young guys are doing in this first postseason.
I'm very impressed, but I'm more impressed with the leadership. Monty Williams setting the culture. Trusting, also securing his own manhood and secure with him as a coach to trust Chris Paul to also be a leader. And then trusting Devin Booker. It's contagious all throughout this lineup. They've done an outstanding job of embracing each other and listening.
Yeah, I love the roster that James Jones built here. I think they have a great complementary players surrounding their two stars in Paul and Booker. It's a really good team. They've been the best team in basketball record-wise since the bubble last year. And they're going to be tough to beat. And Milwaukee, they have the talent. They have the coaching. They have the players. I do think they're missing, because I love the unit they put on the floor with Giannis at 5. If they had DiVincenzo, it would give them another size, big, skilled player that they could deploy with Giannis at the 5. So I'm really interested to see who Milwaukee plays and how they play next game.
We'll get those answers on Thursday night. Look forward to visiting, hopefully, after that game's complete. Thanks, gentlemen, for the time. We'll talk again soon, okay?
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you, Scott.
Yep, I appreciate you both. Talk about what this Game 1 win means. Well, you're 3 away, and history says you're 72% of the time you're going to win that series, including 6 of the last 7. You get off to that quick start. Still need 3 more victories. The Bucks have adjusted well throughout. A lot of folks seem to be projecting a long series. We welcome you back. SportsCenter continues with you till 1 Eastern. The Suns open up a 1-0 lead in the NBA Finals. The backcourt, the big story. Chris Paul, sensational. Devin Booker was as well. To the highlights of that backcourt, showing up and showing out. Chris Paul is what we're talking about. Oh, you're going to switch everything. Okay. How's that working out for you? Paul hits the bucket there. Once again, Lopez ends up on Booker. Booker did not shoot the ball particularly well. I believe 8 from 21. 8 for 21 from the floor. But Booker and Paul combined scored or assisted on 45 of the Suns' 57 in the first half. Paul bottoms from deep. On occasion, there's a question about Booker. You'll say, well, how's the defense? Well, and this one was excellent. Booker try to chase Chris Middleton. Again, that's a make-miss league, as they often say, but when Booker, if they'd have made all 11 shots, we'd just say Booker was guarding them, and they made them all. As it turns out, the Bucks were 1 of 11 with Middleton and Holiday going 0 for 9 with Booker as the primary defender. There's Paul working on Bobby Portis, and that's not a fair fight. Portis is a very capable player who's been playing significant minutes and contributing in a big way in the absence of Giannis late in that Atlanta series, but him trying to stop Chris Paul, well, that's what you get. And Booker, he's so good on off-balance shots. Sometimes the release looks flat, but man, he makes them. Booker and Paul versus Portis and Lopez, 9 of 14 with 25 points. More context now on Paul. Scored or assisted on 54 tonight, the 3rd most by any player making his NBA Finals debut, according to the Elias Sports Bureau, behind only Allen Iverson. That memorable game in 2001 against the Lakers, and Michael Jordan also against the Lakers. That was in 1991. Afterwards, Coach Monty Williams on how the relationship with Chris Paul, which goes back a ways, has evolved.
Back then, I was probably more forceful with calling plays. Now, he'll read the game, I'll watch him, he'll turn to me and I'll be like, you call it. Or he'll be like, Coach, give me something, and then I'll be like, well, do this, that kind of thing, as opposed to me trying to run the whole deal. We always talk about the package of plays that we want to run in certain segments of the game. So we'll have 2 or 3 plays, and he'll stay in that environment for a bit, but ever so often he'll look over to me and he'll squint, and I'll know he's wanting to play, and then I'll call it. Before, it was just me like, run this, run this, run this. Now, I try my best to stay out of his way because I know what he's seeing, and usually when he calls a play that I didn't give him, it's a play I wanted to run anyway. So I think that's the relationship that we've built over, being together twice and being in this situation with him. I think there's a trust there, and I think that helps.
We welcome our friend Michael Wilbon, the Hall of Famer, to the show. This is the rarest of rare, Michael, the big event home game. So I hope you're enjoying that opportunity. And I'm happy we welcome you in off that sound from Monty about the idea of trust. And I wonder how the trust he has in Chris, the trust Chris has in his young guys, is revealing itself throughout this playoff run, but in particular tonight in the Game 1 victory.
Well, Scott, I mean, that dynamic is such a great part of what the Suns have been able to put together this entire season. And, I think they come about it different ways. I mean, you see the sort of calm that Monty Williams has. And he's always been that way. I mean, I've been watching Monty Williams on some level since he was in high school, again, a D.C. guy.
Sure.
And Chris demands it. And it doesn't mean he has to demand it verbally. But, I mean, I remember asking Devin Booker at some point very early in the season, the start of the season, after the practices and training camp, and I said, what is this like with Chris being this demanding? And Book, his eyebrow went up and he said, it's not for everybody. And
right.
he was still paying the ultimate compliment because they revere him. This is not a normal sort of veteran player, respected by the youngsters. It isn't. It's much more than that. I mean, Chris Paul felt that Ayton hadn't really been coached all that hard relative to what he ought to see in terms of what he ought to be. And so you talk about demanding. I mean, Chris started this season that way, and people outside of Greater Phoenix weren't really paying attention. They have been, since the All-Star break. But the two of them, the marriage between Monty Williams and Chris Paul, superstar and coach, I mean, that's an enormous, enormous part of what's happened here this winter and spring and summer now.
Rings in sports can be almost unfairly held against those that don't win them, in my opinion. If you go back to your typewriter column days, Michael, and you assess what the significance of this first step towards potentially adding a ring to Chris Paul's already lengthy resume, how would you go about describing what he provided specifically tonight?
Well, I think that tonight was bigger for the Suns. I know it's the NBA Finals. It's big for everybody. It's not like the Bucks have won anything anytime recently. But Chris understands the entirety of this because he's been on the wrong side of it, Scott, as you know. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's been on some just unfortunate series enders, unlucky, not well played. I mean, Chris will run these down to you. He owns it, and he wants to get away from it, but to get away from it, you got to play away from it. It just doesn't go away. And so I think that once there was a point late in the season, which I talked to Chris, and he said, we know we can be really good. And I said, so how? He said, do you hear what I'm saying? Really, really good. For Chris Paul to say that, he's ramping up to the playoffs, and he understood what was possible. And then you get in the playoffs, and you beat LeBron and the Lakers, no matter if Anthony Davis is injured or not. You sweep Denver, you beat the Clippers, you go through these things that he had been on the other side of. I mean, Chris Paul had been within what? A game or a good really quarter of beating the Golden State Warriors when he was with Houston and he pulled a hamstring and he was the guy. People keep saying, well, do we put an asterisk next to this because, the Suns aren't playing teams with their best players? What about the teams that got Chris Paul and his team but without their best player or their most important player in Houston when it was Chris Paul with the injury? So he realizes these opportunities don't come along often. And while he hasn't said this, Scott, I'm certainly thinking this as somebody watching this team a lot. Think of the Western Conference next year. And if you just sort of say to yourself, oh, we got another shot at this. We got a young Booker, and we got this, and now we got a great coach of the year. And you come back and you got Kawhi back in the lineup for the Clippers, and you got Anthony Davis and LeBron healthy, and you got Jamal Murray healthy, and you got what other changes are going to happen in the Western Conference. You can't look later. You got to look now. And I thought Chris played with that urgency both against the Clippers in that clinch game, and I thought he played with it certainly tonight, and everybody followed his lead. That's the big part of this. They follow him with a dedication and a fervor, if you will, and I think that really speaks well of everything Phoenix has got going on.
Michael, I can't tell you how many times, particularly at the Masters, I've said, when that opportunity presents itself, you better grab that jacket by both lapels because you think it's coming later and it might never knock on your door again. Look, still 3 wins to go. No one's throwing a parade yet, but they win the first one. I just have a last sort of overarching thought about these finals, Michael, because, look, you get to go to Springfield because of a career that's been distinguished in a lot of ways, but you covered so many finals. This one lacks a familiar villain or protagonist? Because you're talking about 75 years combined not being here. I'm interested in how did it feel just in terms of this is the finals, and these are teams that we're not familiar with being on this stage. I just wonder how you sort of consumed it.
Well, Scott, I'm certainly involved in it. I'll admit emotionally in a way that I might not be with others because I'm the editor on Chris's very personal project, which has less to do with the season than it does with his life and family. And so I've been sort of close to him and that all season. And when he was going to be traded to the Suns, it was something I sort of had to sit on for a few days because he thought this was going to happen. He was going to come here. He wanted to play with Booker. And so the Suns have been, to me, as good a story as there's been in the NBA this season. And I know the story's been dominated. The season's been dominated by injuries and this person out and this star out and this superstar missing. And the Suns have somehow navigated that without having it, even though it looked like it might happen to Chris again. First game, remember, against LeBron, he suffers that injury with the shoulder. We don't know what's going to happen. Then he tests positive for COVID, which statistically, when you've been vaccinated, is just something that doctors say is insanely, it's like next to impossible. So that story, for a lot of people, is good enough. But Scott, I think that it's really important. Look, the league can't live off of LeBron and Curry forever.
I agree.
Can't. And the league got caught in this way with Michael Jordan, right? Well, how long did the hangover after Michael's retirement, the last retirement, how long did that last? It lasted for years, and the league couldn't get away from it. The bad basketball played, there are no marketable stars. I don't know if that was ever true, but that was the perception. Now you've got people, and this goes away from Chris a little bit, like Devin Booker. I mean, who is a star, who people are just really seeing and appreciating for the first time. I did a cover story piece for the network in January, maybe early February, about Booker being the most anonymous superstar in the league. And he was. Not so much after 3 series wins and he comes out here and does this in game 1. But I know what you're saying. You're right. There's an unfamiliarity here. The league better push this. They better learn how to do this. These are guys that we're going to see. And there's going to be another young cast of them moving up. DeAndre Ayton, don't let me miss him. So there are players that people are going to grab onto for the first time. You're right. It is something that a lot of people, maybe casual fans, are looking around saying, I don't know, how much am I going to buy into this? But I think if you watch particularly the Suns, and this is Antetokounmpo's first time reaching the finals. So I think there are a lot of people there that folks can identify with, but it's going to take more games, more performances. And if the Suns continue to play like this, and I think they can, they're going to emerge from this as a team that is familiar. And they'll join those other teams as they return their stars next year. I should have mentioned the Nets in there as well, that I think people will feel differently about. But this is a chance for a coming out party for a couple of teams and several stars.
Well, I agree. Listen, you could be a star, just like the golf analogy. You can be a star in the game, but you need to win a major in that sport. You need to win titles in this sport to be truly minted as legendary. And these two teams have that opportunity. As always, Michael, your time's appreciated. Be well, enjoy, all right?
Scott, thanks, man. Appreciate it.
So it comes in a losing effort, but it is an NBA Finals debut from Giannis coming off injury that's still impressive. One of just 6 players in NBA history with 20 and 15 in the NBA Finals debut. As fate would have it, his opponent, DeAndre Ayton, that Michael was just mentioning, joined that list in Game 1. Coach Bud, who you heard from earlier on what he saw from his 2-time MVP, Giannis, tonight.
I thought there were a lot of good things. I mean, I think, considering, 5 days and, what he's been through these last 5, 6, 7 days, I think, 17 rebounds, 20 points, some great playmaking, passing, defending the rim. He's just like everybody else. I'm sure we'll find some things where he could be better. And, I think, usually it takes him playing. He's a rhythm guy. So, I'm excited about, how he'll improve from Game 1 to Game 2. We'll see how he feels. But, I think play-wise, he always gets better when he plays.
We welcome Tim Legler back now as promised. And what's so fun about having you here is I can just come in the office where you're taking your notes and watching and just kind of just shake my head and giggle at what we're watching here thinking, This approach from the Bucks doesn't seem like it's going to work. What can you show us about what Chris Paul did?
When they lay me to rest, it's going to say on my tombstone, here lies a guy who never understood unnecessary switches and drop coverage. All right, I'm telling you right now.
Big-ass tombstone.
I don't get it. It is going to be, because I don't get it, and the Phoenix Suns were prepared for it.
Mm-hmm.
And, some things you put in terms of sets that you want to try to execute. Other things are just reads that you teach over the course of a season. And here's what I'm talking about, this unnecessary switching. I just don't get why, if you're PJ Tucker, you're on the ball. No screen is set. This is not a screen. This is a slip. There is absolutely no reason right here why Giannis Antetokounmpo is going to jump out. Why not just on this slip, just let Giannis go with him? You wanted PJ Tucker on Chris Paul for a reason at the start of the possession. Just leave it that way, but they don't. Instead, here you go. You got the switch. All right, now you got DeAndre Ayton on PJ Tucker. The only question is, how are we going to get him to basketball? You see Chris Paul looking in right there. He doesn't like the way this looks because you got two help guys right here ready to pinch. That's not a great angle. So now here's where the instinct kicks in, and this comes through repetition. Let's get it to the corner. Again, you still got the mismatch in the post. PJ Tucker fronting. Take a look at the weak side. This is not a good passing angle. Taking a look in there. So how do you get him to basketball? Instincts. You teach us over the course of a season. Let's flash middle. Let's get the ball right here. Great read right here from the weak side by Johnson right there. Freeze it. Now PJ Tucker is going to front. He's still fronting the entire time. The problem is, this is a 7-footer down here. Yep. This is easy pitch and catch. This is literally a practice drill that you anticipate when a team fronts, go high, low. That's as easy as it gets for DeAndre Ayton. Now here's the other one, the drop coverage. Starts off to run some action, and really all they're trying to do is get this guy occupied. Brook Lopez is looking all over here because they wanted Devin Booker off a single double. I love the Suns because they always get into quick secondary action. Watch how fast DeAndre Ayton sprints up, and he's going to leave Brook Lopez in the dust. And now Chris Paul is going to come off with all kinds of room. Comes off the screen. Look at this cushion. Now, most people will think, let's pull up and shoot that. The problem is Chris Paul doesn't like that shot. He loves coming left, snaking back to the right. So he's going to take Brook Lopez on a nice little ride here, and he's going to get some help from Devin Booker, who clears his man out so Chris Paul can get to that little leaner on the baseline. This is all set up by drop coverage on the initial point of attack. You cannot do this against Chris Paul and Devin Booker. You just can't do it, and I think you're going to see a massive adjustment. Now, I heard Stephen A. talk a little bit about it, and I heard Mark Jackson talking about it. What they need to do is put Drew Holiday and Chris Paul and say, you got to be a dog on him. Hunt him. At 30 feet, go under the screen. You don't have to go over. Inside the three-point line, fight over the top, get a hard hedge from the big, and I want Drew Holiday on Chris Paul's hip as much as he possibly can unless he's in foul trouble. Booker's going to get his numbers. So use other guys on him. Connaughton, PJ Tucker, Middleton can get him some. Bryn Forbes, go ahead. Chris Paul is the key to this series, and Drew Holiday needs to lock in on him as much as possible.
You think of a quarterback like a vet. Just say Tom Brady, because there's nobody older than him, right? You're trying to disguise a blitz or something. He's going to know exactly what's coming. I can't think of a worse point guard to leave in a situation where he could hunt the matchup he wants when you're going to switch than Chris Paul. You could have shown time and time again where he just chose who he wanted to guard him. Yeah. You can't let that happen.
And it's not. And tonight it was more as a scorer because that's what was there for him. But there's other plays in this game I could have shown you where he ends up getting like a hockey assist. But again, it leads to the Bucks chasing the ball around like Keystone Cops because they got the matchup they wanted. They broke somebody down off the dribble. They're in the paint, and now the Bucks are reacting to that. I just didn't see anything Milwaukee did tonight that said to the Suns, we are going to dictate to you what we want you to do offensively. Everything they did was set up to react. Can't do it. Chris Paul, Devin Booker are too good at ball screen players. DeAndre Ayton is too good and too skilled and too talented on the slips and the dives when he gets a smaller defender switching onto him. You've got to let these guys play him a little bit more straight up. At least let them fight over some screens. You obviously are going to need help on some screens, but to premeditate switches, like the first example I showed, when no screen is set, and you had PJ Tucker on Chris Paul for a reason, no screen is set, and now let him go run with Ayton and let Giannis jump out on the guard. And eventually now the Suns are just going, okay, we practiced this drill. Let's go to the corner, run some high-low, and get DeAndre Ayton a layup. It was so clockwork. Give Monty Williams all the credit in the world. They've watched a lot of film on this team. They anticipated the switches, and they hammered them every time they did. But I do think it was easy pickings for the Suns. This was not rocket science out there for them, for a guy like Chris Paul to figure this out. Get what you want, by calling out who you want to set the screen. There's got to be a massive adjustment on the part of Mike Budenholzer. And if there isn't, they can't beat this team.
There you go. You mentioned Drew Holiday. He spoke afterwards about his mindset defensively tonight.
Really just saw him being aggressive. So at that point, I felt like I wanted to just annoy him, kind of get him off rhythm, be able to either make him pass the ball or take tough shots, tough too. So, yeah, that's something that we're going to have to make an adjustment to in game 2.
And with the switching, just what did you see on that in the first half versus second half?
First half, they got a lot of fouls. They went to the free throw line a lot. We got to do better with that. D-Book got to the free throw line. Great free throw shooting team. And then second half did better, but just think Chris Paul got a little bit too comfortable.
That's interesting. Both he and Bud mentioned one word specifically, rhythm.
Yeah.
How does that reveal itself specifically to Chris Paul? What are they talking about in your opinion?
When he gets space off a ball screen, it's exactly the world he wants to live in. He's one of the best mid-range players that this league has ever seen.
You can still do that, by the way, kids. They don't have to be dunks or three-pointers.
That's right. And he wants that lean-back shot, and he wants to get it somewhere inside the foul line area. It's his favorite place to be. That's comfort zone. That's rhythm, allowing a guy to get into his wheelhouse. And when you let him come off of that kind of space, that's what's going to happen. So, look, if I'm Drew Holiday, and Damian Lillard called this guy the best perimeter defensive player in the NBA. It's a pretty good source that's coming from.
I'd say.
Okay? If I'm Drew Holiday, I'm going to Mike Budenholzer, and I'm saying, listen, let me hound Chris Paul and try to wear him down. I'm going to fight over as many screens as I can. And again, Scott, one of the adjustments that teams just don't make, and I don't know why, because you can ask guys to do this, depending where the screen is set, you don't have to go over every screen. If a screen is set at 30 feet for a guy like Chris Paul, you do not need to fight over it. He's not going to pull it from there. Every now and then, maybe, this isn't Curry, Trae Young, or Lillard. Go under if it's set far out on the floor. Go under, meet him on the other side, but keep Holiday on him. If it's set tighter to the three-point line, yes, you've got to chase over the top of that. Hopefully you get a little help from the big, but then ultimately fight your way back to Chris Paul and track him from behind if you're Drew Holiday. I am going to Mike Budenholzer and saying, let me do this. I need to disrupt his rhythm. Booker's a different animal altogether. Chris Paul is the guy that is the key to this series, and Drew Holiday is the one guy they have that is equipped to be able to take on this challenge and at least disrupt his efficiency. Tonight, Chris Paul had it far easier than he expected in his first finals game.
It's funny, I just wrote down that word, and far be it from me. I've never been in the arena, but certainly Chris Paul, I'm not saying it was easy. He made it appear to be. Apparently, Brook Lopez moments ago just said he could have done a better job trusting his teammates on switches. That's going to be what they talk about between now and Thursday. It has to be.
For sure.
You can't let this happen again.
No doubt.
We're going to run this back.
No doubt.
All right. We will continue.
Felt great. Obviously I'm trying not to make it about me, but felt great. The medical staff cleared me to play. Out there I had my balance. Felt my knee was stable. Did not feel pain, so I felt good.
That play was crowded. Do you know?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I felt good.
Go ahead, Jeff.
You had just told Eric that you had lots of discussions throughout the week, but what was the rehab process? Was it grueling? Was it time consuming? How many hours were you spending a day trying to get that knee ready?
24. From my treatment, from lifting, from getting on the court, pull sessions, keeping my foot elevated, like 24 hours a day. And obviously it wasn't easy, but, I was willing to do it. And I think, the medical staff had a great program for me that I was able to, do what I have to do to get, stay in shape and at the same time recover and, not have a lot of swelling in my knee. And, I was declared me to play. I felt good. My knee, did not feel no pain. The swelling was down, so I was like, okay, good to go.
Lori?
I don't think we believe you about the pain thing, but I wondered if you saw, because we know you. But it's okay, I understand. But I wondered if you saw the video of your injury.
No.
No, it makes sense. And then the wrap that you had, did that hinder your range of motion at all? I mean, you were pretty wrapped up on the knee and.
No. I'm trying my best here to, not make it about my knee, but I'm going to say one more time that my knee felt good. Obviously, you when you go and play a game, you never know what's going to happen. A play with Jay Crowder might happen, or the same play that happened that line. You don't know what's going to happen. I'm just happy that I'm out there, and I'm able to, help my teammate in any way possible. And participate in NBA Finals, my first NBA Finals. So I'm just, try to, put my attention in that and not in, if my knee hurts, if I feel, At the end of the day, I'm out there. I feel good. I don't feel pain. I can run, I can jump, I can set screens, I can rebound the ball, I can do stuff. So I'm good, I'm happy. I'm happy that I'm out there. At the end of the day, I haven't watched the clip, but when the play happened, I thought I'm going to be out for a year, So I'm just happy that two games later, I'm back.
Tried to make it not about his knee, but obviously people had questions. Suns minus 180 to win the series early on Tuesday with a Game 1 victory, and now minus 360 at Caesars Sportsbook by William Hill. If you're interested, Phoenix is laying 5.5. History to have 20 and 15 on an 80% shooting performance in a game. The other three, how about a list you're on with Wilt, because he's on every list, Kareem and Bill Russell. You have to, I don't even know if the young man fully understands how great this list is. Wasn't alive when they were playing, really, but that's okay. He's here now, and he is enjoying every bit of this.
I'm just happy because I woke up saying, this is just one game closer. You know what I'm saying? I get goosebumps. Sometimes I overwhelm myself on the way to the game. I'm having a lot of fun because my guys in there, they keep me level, and, they keep me intent with it.
We welcome Tim Legler back. You just had an observation. If you're DeAndre Ayton, what do you get?
Take that graphic that you just showed, put that on your wall, blow that thing up, put it in a frame.
I'm sure he has grand aspirations for his career, but you're not joking. You're talking about Bill, you're talking about Wilt, you're talking about Kareem, and you're on that list. He continues to be excellent, and the Suns get this victory. But you made the point earlier, Tim. You expect to see a different Bucks approach on the defensive side as it relates to switching. How different do you anticipate Giannis will appear in Game 2?
I think significantly, unless he's just completely lying about how his leg feels. If he's saying, hey, it felt no pain, felt great out there, and we're going to take him at his word, then I'm going to say what I saw tonight was a guy that was sort of tentative, feeling that thing out. That was a very serious injury. He's been through a lot. I'm sure he's still got swelling in there. He seemed like a guy that was not in his normal aggressive mindset. That's not the same guy I've watched for the last few years. So if he's telling the truth and he really does feel good physically, well, the test is now behind me. Game 2, you get back to being Giannis Antetokounmpo, playing downhill, getting in gaps, taking advantage of a team that plays a lot of small lineups. DeAndre Ayton's a legit big, but they have a lot of lineups out there with two guards, Jay Crowder and Mikal Bridges. That's a small team, and those are typically the kinds of teams that Giannis Antetokounmpo guts you with, because he gets you with that stride, he gets in a gap, and there's not a lot of size there as a second-line defender. That's what I expect to see out of Giannis. He has to be, obviously, much better than he was tonight if the Milwaukee Bucks want to have a shot at winning this.
Our guy Stanford, Steve, hope you're enjoying the beach, big man, makes the point, and he's right, that the biggest mistake we tend to make this time of year in particular is to overreact to what we see in a game, presuming it will continue in the next. It often does not. But was there anything that the Bucks did that they're going to want to take with them to Game 2? Obviously, they want a different result, but you're telling me don't bury the Bucks just yet. Were there things you saw that you're like, that wasn't bad?
Not a lot, truthfully.
Understood.
But this is one of the highest scoring teams in the last couple of decades in the NBA. Mm-hmm. They're much better offensively than they showed tonight. The problem was they kept taking the ball to the net all night. They were so bad defensively and so ill-equipped to defend them and offer resistance to what Phoenix was trying to run. You can't get that train moving up the floor, and that's when they're at their best. Giannis, with his speed, with those guys running to the line, that's when they're really special offensively. Didn't see very many examples of that in this game.
But I almost wonder, when you're that bad defensively, if that's not a good thing, because when you put the tape on, it's really obvious what you need to be better at. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, definitely.
Like if there's a subtlety, I just don't know what we can do better, that would suck. Look, when you know what you need to do better, that's the fix.
Never played in the NBA Finals, but I've been in a lot of film rooms as a player the day after an embarrassing defensive effort, and there's going to be a lot of ticked off guys in there. And if they have the kind of pride that they've shown, that's going to be a team where guys are going to take more accountability for their own individual challenge. And it starts with Drew Holiday on Chris Paul as much as you can get him there and keep him there. Because even P.J. Tucker, who wants to go out there and compete, we love his heart. From a lateral mobility standpoint, that's not a great matchup for him either. Drew Holiday is the guy, and Chris Paul is the key. You've got to get as many minutes as you can with Drew Holiday fighting over screens and insisting on taking on that matchup, even if it means you give up a little bit offensively on the other end. Let other guys make up for that. That should be your main responsibility in this series.
We get 90 minutes, man. We can air it out. This is good fun,
yeah,
right?
Definitely.
This takes us back to our days in the CAP up in Connecticut when we just sat down and just chatted over some dinner. We're going to do it again on Thursday night, Tim.
This year in the playoffs against Brooklyn, we were down 3-2. Was able to force a Game 7 and win the game on their home court. So I think, we've been through a lot. We've been through it all. We know it's not going to be easy. We know it's not going to be tough. There's times where we're going to be down in the series, but the series isn't over yet if we're down. We still got to keep competing and just playing.
Back to the Valley, Malika Andrews joins us. You're there on the sidelines, and you heard from the Bucks afterwards. We heard a bit from Giannis. We just heard from Middleton. How do you best summarize what you got from them in this Game 1?
Well, the most important thing about this Game 1 for the Milwaukee Bucks, Scott, as you know, is that Giannis Antetokounmpo, not only was he back, not only was he able to play, but he was his physical self. And Chris Middleton said, you know what, Giannis probably isn't at 100%, but I would say he's at about 90%. And Giannis Antetokounmpo said that after the game, he still hasn't watched that clip of him hyperextending his left knee. But he did say that after that moment, he said, I thought that I was going to be out for an entire year. So the fact that he was playing in this Game 1, the fact that the MRI showed that it wasn't something that was more catastrophic, that he was able to work. He said he's been doing pool sessions, rehab sessions, treatment. He said 24 hours a day. This has been a full-time job for him. So the fact that it was able to work to the degree that he was able to come back and look pretty close to his normal self, that in itself was a victory for the Milwaukee Bucks. Now, that doesn't mean it translated to a victory in Game 1 tonight, but Giannis said that now he sort of knows what his body can do. He can feel out his limitations a little bit more and then hope to be more aggressive and get a win in Game 2. But honestly, Scott, after a loss, knowing how competitive Giannis Antetokounmpo is, this was some of the most relaxed and reflective that I have seen him in my 3 years covering him, Scott.
That's really interesting because I felt the same way. Like people were basically saying, we don't believe you and what he had to say about his knee. But he was just like, look, I'm trying my best not to make it about my knee, even though we all want to. And I feel like for basically the last 90 minutes on our show, Malika, we've hammered home the point that the Bucks did a lousy job on defense. They let Paul pick his spots. The Bucks have alluded to the fact they want to look at the tape. Adjustment-wise, what's the sense of what they're going to try to do differently in Game 2?
Well, one of the focuses for them, right, they're going to need to take a look at Drew Holiday a little bit because when Giannis Antetokounmpo was out, Drew Holiday was getting to the rack. He was so aggressive in that way. And I asked him about it postgame because he'd said to me before that he felt that when Giannis is out, he needs to make up for that aggression a little bit more. And that wasn't totally there tonight. He said he felt like he was good for the team in other ways, but it was just a poor shooting night for him. And he said he knows that he's going to need to step that up. So it's going to start there. And then in addition to that, when I was speaking with the Bucks coaches at halftime, I was told, look, we need to be getting Drew Holiday in more pick and roll situations. We need to not be letting the Suns play with such pace. Devin Booker, even though he wasn't shooting great to start the game, he was still able to take so many trips to the free throw line. And so those are some things that they're going to try to avoid to try to steal a game here in Phoenix in Game 2.
Yeah, they didn't get to the finals because they've lost a bunch, but when they have, they've gone 4-1 since the loss. So that's good news for the Bucks as they get ready for Thursday night. Malika, I don't know if you're on the next Sports Center or not. You can let your family know that, but we thank them for watching you here on Sports Center with us as always. We appreciate you.
Thanks so much, Scott. I'm sure my parents will be thrilled.
Right on.